They walked in hand, and in that one quiet moment the world stopped. No words, no speeches, no royal waves. Just two people, William and Kate, stepping out into the light after weeks of silence. The cameras were waiting, the reporters whispering, the public holding its breath. But the silence spoke louder than anything else. Kate's face was calm, but her eyes were heavy. She didn't smile. She didn't look around. She just kept her eyes on the ground in front of her. Her fingers were gently wrapped around William's hand, holding on. Not for show, not for tradition, but for strength. She needed him. And he was right there. He walked beside her like a shield. His eyes scanned ahead, not for danger, but as if he was trying to protect her from the weight of everything around them. It was their first public appearance since the heartbreaking announcement. The world had waited in pain and confusion after the palace shared the truth. Kate, the Princess of Wales, was battling a serious illness. Her health, once a private matter, had suddenly become the focus of global concern. For weeks, people had prayed, speculated, cried, and hoped. And now, there she was. Not just Kate the royal, not the future queen, just Kate, the woman, the wife, the mother, bravely stepping out into a world that suddenly felt different. People noticed the way she walked. Each step was slow but steady, not weak, just careful, strong in a quiet way. Her coat moved gently with the wind. Her hair was neatly tied back, no bold colors, no flashy jewels, just grace, honest, simple grace. But it was the way she held William's hand that captured hearts. She wasn't clinging, she wasn't pretending, she was just holding on, like someone who had walked through a storm and found peace in one thing: love. William didn't speak either. His face was tight, his jaw slightly clenched. But when he looked at her, his whole expression changed. His eyes softened. There was pain in them, yes, but also something unshakable. He looked at Kate the way a man looks at the center of his world. Not like a royal husband, but like someone who knows he'd give up everything just to take her pain away. That one glance, just a second, was what broke people watching from home. One woman later wrote online, "When he looked at her like that, I just started crying. You could see everything in his eyes, his love, his fear, his pride." Inside the small chapel, it was quiet. Not even the press made a sound. Everyone respected the space they gave off. A kind of invisible wall. You don't break silence like that. You feel it, you carry it, you let it speak. Kate gave a soft nod to a few people, but her face never broke into a smile. It didn't need to. Her presence alone said enough. She had come because she wanted to, not because she was told to, not because cameras were waiting, but because she still cared. She still wanted to be part of the world around her, even when it hurt, even when her body was tired. At one moment, as they were walking in, a soft wind brushed against them. A few strands of Kate's hair came loose. She reached to tuck them back, and so did William. Their hands met. Just for a second. She looked at him, and he looked back. No words, but the world watching saw everything. In that look was a lifetime, a quiet, powerful love. Later, a royal source would say, they didn't need to speak. Their silence was their message. For many, that moment was more powerful than any royal speech, more touching than any grand ceremony, because it was real, honest, raw, and people needed that. In a world full of noise, this simple walk, this quiet hand-holding, reminded people that love is not always loud, that strength can look like softness, that sometimes just showing up is the bravest thing a person can do. Kate didn't say a single word that day, but her message was clear. I'm still here. I'm still standing. And I'm still me. And William's eyes answered back. I'm with you. Every step, always. That was part one of their story. But for millions watching, it was already enough to bring tears. Because when two hearts walk together through pain, they don't need to speak to be understood. They just need to hold on. The soft sound of their footsteps faded as they entered the chapel, but the emotion they left behind still hung in the air. People stood quietly, many holding back tears. No one expected to feel so much in such a short moment. But that's what Kate and William had done. They walked in without a single word, yet their silence touched more hearts than any long speech ever could. It was quiet. It was honest. And it was real. Inside, the space was peaceful. The walls were lined with candles, their flames flickering gently like little whispers of hope. The choir hummed softly in the background, their voices barely rising. Above the stillness, and there in the front row, Kate and William took their seats. She sat straight, shoulders back, but her hands trembled just a little. William noticed. Without looking down, he moved his hand closer until his fingers brushed hers. She didn't move at first, but then she turned her palm and gently held his. There were no cameras inside, no flashing lights. But someone watching from a corner said later, it was the kind of silence you remember forever, the kind that speaks louder than words. Kate wore a soft expression, one that looked calm from a distance, but close up anyone could see the fight behind it. She blinked often, holding back tears. She was not the woman people remembered from glossy magazines or smiling royal visits. She was something even more beautiful, brave, broken but not defeated. During the short service, the vicar spoke about love, loss, and the strength it takes to keep going. As he spoke, William sat with his head slightly bowed. But now and then, he turned to look at her, not to check on her, not to make a show. He simply needed to see her. As if by looking at her, he could draw strength too. And she felt it. Each time he looked, she pressed his hand just a bit tighter. A young choir boy began to sing, "Abide with Me." The moment the first note hit, Kate closed her eyes. For a second, it looked like she had gone far away in her thoughts. Maybe back to the quiet hospital rooms. Maybe to moments spent with her children. Maybe even to prayers whispered late at night, when no one else was around. Her lip trembled, and her eyes glistened. But she didn't cry. She stayed strong, just like always. William leaned in and whispered something. No one could hear what he said, but it made her eyes open again. She looked at him, nodded slowly, and gave the tiniest smile. Not the kind that reaches your cheeks, the kind that reaches your soul. A small moment of peace between two people, holding each other through the storm. When the song ended, a hush fell over the room. People were quiet, not because they had to be, but because they were moved, deeply moved. A woman sitting 2 rows behind them later told a reporter, "When I saw Kate close her eyes, I started crying. It was like I could feel what she felt. Her pain, her courage, her silence, it was so powerful." As the service ended, the crowd outside waited quietly. No shouting, no pushing, just waiting. Hoping to see her again, hoping to show their love in return. And when Kate and William stepped out, hand still in hand, there was a soft gasp from the crowd. Not because she looked glamorous, not because they were surprised she came, but because she came back the same way she left, bravely, silently, lovingly. Then something happened. A little girl in the front row, no more than 6 years old, held up a bouquet of flowers. They were white lilies, pure, delicate, and trembling in her tiny hands. She didn't speak. She didn't call out. She just held them high, hoping. Kate saw her. She paused. Her eyes met the girl's, and for a moment it was like no one else existed. She let go of William's hand just for a second, bent down, and gently took the flowers. She touched the girl's cheek lightly and smiled. This time, it reached her eyes, not a smile of strength, a smile of thanks. William stood beside her, watching with a quiet kind of pride. He didn't interrupt. He didn't rush her. He just waited, letting her have that small, gentle moment. As they walked away again, the flowers in Kate's hand, the silence returned. But this time it wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. It was full. Full of love. Full of grace. Full of something that words can never truly explain, and the crowd, many with tears in their eyes, watched them go, not as royals but as two people in love, holding on to each other through every heartbeat, every fear, every unknown. That day, no one would forget how Kate didn't say a single word but somehow said everything. The car ride home was quiet. No royal staff spoke. No music played. Just the low hum of the engine and the sound of raindrops gently tapping the windows. William and Kate sat side by side in the back seat. Their hands were still joined, fingers laced tightly like they had been from the very beginning of the day. But now the emotions they had held back were finally starting to rise. Kate looked out of the window, her reflection soft and still. Her eyes, once so full of light, now carried something deeper, something tender and tired. But there was a calm in her, a quiet grace. Even in pain, she carried herself like someone who knew that showing up mattered more than looking strong. William looked at her, just watching. He hadn't said much since they left the chapel. He didn't need to. Every breath he took, every glance, every gentle squeeze of her hand, said all the things he couldn't find words for. He had stood beside her, through thick and thin. But today felt different. Today he wasn't just a prince or a husband. He was a man holding on with everything he had. Back at the palace, the children waited. George, Charlotte, and little Louis had been told their mum would be out just for a short while. The nanny said they had been drawing pictures for her, just to make her smile when she came home. And as the car pulled into the gates, the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting a soft golden light over the stone walls of Windsor. Kate stepped out slowly, still holding the flowers the little girl had given her. Her fingers brushed over the petals as if holding something very precious. William stayed close, just a step behind, watching her every move with quiet care. He knew she was tired. He knew she had used every bit of strength just to make it through the day. Inside, the children ran to her. Charlotte was first. She threw her arms around Kate's waist and held her tightly. Kate knelt down, her arms wrapping around all three of them, her face buried in their hair. And for the first time that day, the tears finally came. Not in front of cameras, not in front of crowds, but here, with the people who loved her most. William stood just a few feet away, his eyes wet, his heart full. He watched as Kate kissed the top of each child's head, whispering something to each of them. They giggled softly, not fully understanding the weight of what their mother had been through, but sensing her love, feeling her warmth. Later that evening, after the children had gone to bed, the palace felt quiet again. William and Kate sat in the same room they always did, near the fireplace, 2 mugs of untouched tea on the table between them. Kate leaned back against the armrest of the couch, her feet tucked under her. William sat close, their knees touching. He reached for her hand again. She gave it without hesitation. He didn't ask how she was feeling. He already knew. She didn't try to explain. She didn't need to. Then he spoke. Just once, softly. "I was proud of you today," he said, his voice thick with emotion. So proud. Kate looked at him, her eyes still tired but filled with love. "I was scared," she whispered, "but I knew you'd be there." There was a long pause, the kind of silence that only comes between two people who've walked through the fire together. Then William leaned in and rested his forehead against hers. No tears, just closeness, just love. In another part of the palace, royal staff quietly shared stories of the day. One of the guards said, "She looked so fragile, but at the same time, she was the strongest person in the room." Another added, "It wasn't just about what she did, it was how he looked at her, like she was everything." Across the country, people talked about the moment they saw Kate wave to the little girl. Others spoke of the way William's hand never left hers. News outlets called it the most human royal moment of the decade. But in homes everywhere, people didn't need headlines. They had felt it. They had seen the truth. This wasn't just a story about illness or royalty. It was a story about love that doesn't give up, about showing up even when it hurts, about a woman who spoke without words, and a man who stood quietly beside her, letting his eyes speak for his heart. And in that quiet palace room, with tea gone cold and love still warm, they sat together, stronger not because of what they had said, but because of how deeply they had. Morning pushed its gentle light through the tall palace windows. Soft gold touched the room where William and Kate had fallen asleep on the sofa, still side by side. A half-burned candle flickered on the table, and the little bouquet of white lilies lay between their cooling teacups. The scent was faint now, but it still carried the memory of that little girl who had reached out to Kate with silent love. Kate opened her eyes first. For a moment she did not remember where she was. Then she felt William's hand resting over hers, their fingers still loosely linked even in sleep. She turned her head and watched him breathe, slow, steady, safe. The sight warmed her heart, more than any blanket could. She pressed her thumb against his knuckles, a small, grateful touch. He stirred, blinked, and met her gaze. No words, just a soft smile, tired but real. Outside, the world was waking to countless newspaper covers all showing the same picture, the pair walking hand in hand, eyes low, hearts open. Headlines spoke of courage, of silent vows, of love that could not be measured. Comment sections overflowed with prayers and promises from strangers who suddenly felt closer to them than ever before. Kate did not see those papers yet, but she felt their weight, like unseen hands sending her strength. A light knock sounded at the door. Maria, the nanny, peeked in, her voice gentle. "The children are awake, Your Royal Highnesses. They have something for you." Kate sat up, straightened her coat, then paused to steady herself. William rose first, offering his arm, not out of custom, but out of care. She took it, and together they walked toward the children's room. George, Charlotte, and Louis waited around a small table covered in colored pencils and bright paper shapes. George held a drawing of a giant heart. Inside the heart, 3 stick figures stood together, Dad, Mum, and the 3 children all holding hands. He pointed to one corner where he had written in bold letters, "We are Team Wales." Charlotte shyly pushed forward a bracelet made from pink and white beads that spelled Mummy. Louis, too small for long projects, simply hugged Kate's legs and said, "Love you, Mama." Kate knelt, her eyes damp. She kissed each of them, the bracelet already around her wrist. William crouched beside her, both parents wrapping their arms around the little group. It was a soft fortress no illness could break. Later that morning, an official draft statement lay on the desk in William's study. Advisors had written words like duty, courage, prognosis. But when Kate read the paper, she shook her head gently. "It's all true," she whispered, "but it doesn't sound like us." William understood. He reached for a pen. Together, line by line, they rewrote the message in simple language, a letter from 2 hearts to millions more. They spoke of good days and hard days, of doctor's care and the children's laughter, of the comfort found in every card, every prayer, every kind thought. They ended with one short promise. "We will keep walking, hand in hand, toward brighter mornings." When the statement went out, the internet seemed to pause, then breathe aloud. Hashtags of hope trended across continents. In hospitals, patients whispered that if a princess could face illness with grace, so could they. In schools, children drew pictures of Kate wearing Charlotte's bead bracelet. The world, for a moment, felt a little kinder. Evening came, and with it the gentle buzz of phones lighting up with messages from friends, family, and even distant strangers. Kate read a note from a woman who had battled the same illness years before. "You are teaching us all that bravery is quiet," it said. Kate pressed the phone to her chest and closed her eyes, letting the words settle deep. William watched her. He stepped behind, wrapped his arms around her waist, and rested his chin on her shoulder. Do you feel ready for tomorrow? He asked softly. She thought for a long time. Then she nodded. Tomorrow might be hard, she said, but I'm not walking into it alone. She turned, placing her hand over his heart. We moved together. Night fell. In the garden, a thin moon shone over the flowers that Kate loved to tend when she had strength. She asked William to walk outside with her for a moment. Wrapped in a shawl, she stepped onto the cool grass. The air smelled of damp earth and new beginnings. They strolled slowly, side by side, fingers brushing old rose bushes whose buds slept tight, waiting for spring. Kate paused at one small plant with a single tight bud. Not ready yet, she whispered, touching its tip. But it will bloom. She looked up at William. The moonlight caught her pale face, making her eyes seem to glow. He took her hand fully, and they stood there, silent and strong, watching. The garden in stillness. A camera lens was nowhere near. No crowds, no flash, no headlines. Just two beating hearts side by side, writing their own quiet ending to a day that had begun with trembling steps and ended with steady ones. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, people lay down to sleep with gentler thoughts, inspired by a princess who walked through fear with open hands, and a prince whose eyes spoke the language of unwavering love. They closed their eyes, hearing an echo. We will keep walking, hand in hand, toward brighter mornings.